Story 1. The fear of death is really the fear of unfinished business. The older you get, the more you do in life, the less scary death becomes. I am 62 years old. I have enjoyed a long and happy marriage to a woman who creates life, love, and beauty wherever she goes. Together, we have raised 3 wonderful children who have grown into funny, smart, and conscientious adults. We have a life filled with friendships and interests. To be sure, there are things I want to do in life and I am not close to being done. But if I were to die of a heart attack after posting this, I would feel that I have lived a life where I gave more than I took, and that I will live on in the stories my children tell and the world they create around them. It's important to realize that the world didn't begin with you, and it won't end with you either. Instead, it's better to think of the world as a relay race, where you take the baton from those who came before you and pass it along to those who follow, whether those people are your children, your friends, or the beneficiaries of your love and best intentions. In that sense, our fear of death is inversely proportional to our fulfillment of our hopes in life and to our ability to create a world that is better and more powerful than the sum of all our fears. Story 2. It is such a long shot that you're here at all. Grab hold of that miracle and make the most of it. Story 3. Who says you are mortal? Sure, the vessel you are in is going to die, but your actions, your kindness, and your effort are immortal. Story 4. How? There's no other choice but to cope. We all die whether we accept it or not. Just don't think you're more special than the hundreds of thousands of people who have died and the hundreds of people who die every single day, including children. Knowing that you're just passing through life temporarily, like passing through a town, is key. Don't take this life too seriously. Don't hold on too tightly. Death is just sleep. When you're sleeping, you don't know that you're sleeping until you've woken up. Except in death, you won't ever wake up. It's just eternal rest. Nice. No boring job to go to, no alarm clocks, no bills, no taxes. No narcissists to deal with. Yes, please. Story 5. Personally, I find it helpful to believe that there is no inherent meaning to life. Removing that pressure alleviates my social anxieties and brings me peace of mind. I'm 30 years old, so consider that perspective with caution. I'm fairly certain that true existential dread takes longer to manifest. Story 6. I am 40 years old. Over Christmas, I spent 16 days in the cardiology intensive care unit, with my oxygen saturation at 45, close to clinical death. After 16 days, I walked out on my own, and 5 months later, I am walking 20 to 30 kilometers a day. You must move forward without looking back. Live as if each day were your last. Try to do the things you have planned for yourself. Smile and joke because life is too short to worry. Story 7. I am somewhat of a nihilist. We are here. We live, love, and die. That is it. Legacy is for the weak, desperate individuals who struggle to reconcile their own mortality. It is a vain attempt to be remembered beyond death. Nobody beyond their immediate friends and family will care after the first few days. Story 8. Listening to Alan Watts talks and reading some of his books helped me a lot 10 years ago. Story 9. What others said is that death is the one inevitable aspect of human existence. Everyone who lives will die. There is not a single exception. Death will come, and all we can do is greet it with as much dignity as we can muster in the moment it arrives. Story 10. It's just the way it is. We are born, we live for a while, then we die. We all have an expiration date. Some sooner, some later. I'm not afraid of dying. Beginnings can be scary, and endings can be sad. It's what happens in the middle that counts the most. Make the middle of your life spectacular. Story 11. Live every day to the fullest and be present. I have faced my mortality a few times, feeling certain I was going to die. I made a list of everything I wanted to accomplish before I died and even completed it. It was difficult to adjust to the idea of not dying, but I choose to enjoy today. Story 12. Making conscious decisions with your time. Let's go for a walk. Let me drive a different route home this time. I'll put my food delivery money today into my next holiday. Let's see if I can still do 10 push-ups. Random mini decisions that enrich your life during the seemingly boring parts of your day are what make your days fuller and help you spend less time thinking aimlessly about death. Thinking about death can be a good thing. It helps keep you in touch with reality. However, if it becomes melancholic, it might be time to switch gears. Story 13. I'm glad I'm not immortal. This place is challenging. I'm content with not existing. I used to be a Christian and struggled with crippling anxiety because it would torment me to think about existing in some sort of afterlife for eternity, regardless of what that afterlife offered. Now I'm happily agnostic and do not worry about that at all. No more anxiety. I no longer think about lying dead in a coffin and struggle with that image. Maybe I'm different from most people, but my brain just needs to see the logic in order to believe in something. Story 14. Try war. Once you get damaged, shot at, and hit, you realize you are nothing. Being in the intensive care unit under a blood transfusion and a feeding tube is when you either change your ways or become worse as a human. Learn patience. Learn forgiveness. Read the book. Follow or at least try. Story 15. Embrace it. Enjoy every single second you have on this earth because eventually, like all things, it will come to an end. With death, either there is a heaven or there is nothing, which means no pain, no misery, no sadness, just nothing. To me, that sounds good too. Dying is the only thing you share with every single living thing on this planet. We will all meet there eventually. Story 16. There is no reason to worry about death because you are not around to experience the negative effects. I believe there is nothing after death. Therefore, death cannot worry me as worry is always about outcomes. Story 17. Oh, just crippling health anxiety. I have always feared death. I remember learning about it when I was 6 or 7, and I was devastated. I have extreme fear of missing out about life continuing after I am gone, so I just worry about it. Story 18. Serves as motivation to engage in daily activities. This will come to an end at some point, so it is best to embrace it. I don't mean a hedonistic lifestyle right now. Do whatever makes you happy. I am not afraid of dying. I am more concerned about not truly living. Story 19. I do not stress over things I cannot control. People often become anxious about many aspects of their lives that are beyond their control, which can negatively affect their well-being. I choose to focus only on the things I can change. Story 20. Memento Mori. Philosophy and discussing it with anyone who is willing to engage in the conversation has been beneficial to me. Story 21. Remember that you too shall die, so that you may remember to live. Story 22. I have just learned to accept that it is inevitable. There is nothing I can do about it except make the most of my life while I can. Story 23. I'm 35, and it's something I think about more often than ever. I believe it's because my parents are in their 60s and showing their age. They still have a couple of decades left, I'm sure. But it all eventually comes to an end, doesn't it? It's okay to think about this kind of stuff. I would argue it's necessary. Mortality makes life meaningful. So far, I'm enjoying my time on this planet, and I'd like to prolong it. But if I knew I had unlimited time, what would anything even mean? We're here to maximize our pleasure in a finite amount of time. There's really not much more to it than that. Just do the best you can. Story 24. I watched a documentary 10 years ago that explored what people experience after dying. It featured many individuals who had been revived, and all of them described it as the most peaceful and content feeling they have ever experienced in their lives. I have always held on to the belief that the experience will be euphoric, that I will finally be free of pain, and that I will be able to rest eternally. This world feels too ugly and painful for me. Story 25. I had an existential crisis when I was 13 because I realized that I was going to die and fully understood it. Story 26. I try not to think about it. If I do, I remind myself that death will happen eventually, no matter what. The best thing we can do is accept that and decide to enjoy the moments we have. There are many wonderful things out there. Just step outside, find a park, and enjoy the fresh air. Story 27. I grew up around death, which helped me develop a healthy relationship with it. Making peace with my own mortality was primarily about letting go of my emotional desire for immortality and addressing my anxieties. Once I embraced my humanity and took control of my end-of-life care, what remained was relatively small and easier to handle. Story 28. By doing what I enjoy the most. Listening to Pink Floyd's Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast. While having a classic English breakfast that includes hot pork sausages, bacon, and good coffee. Story 29. I get scared from time to time, but much less so as I get older. I remember that it is a natural process that every person goes through, just like birth. Story 30. I don't feel the need to change it. It's not something I can control, so I don't worry about it. I'm not afraid of death in general, so that might not mean much. Story 31. You don't avoid it. You just do whatever you can to delay it. But it's always there. I will take advantage of any breakthrough that has a chance to delay it, even if it's unethical or I have to sell my home to fund it. Story 32. I was diagnosed with cancer in December 2024 and was surprised I didn't die from it. After surgery and chemotherapy, every day feels like a bonus. Story 33. Realize that life is a cycle that everyone goes through. In order to progress to the next step of the cycle, we must pass away. Story 34. It is pointless to worry about death, as it is inevitable for everyone and you will not know the moment it happens. Focus on eating nutritious food, being kind to people and animals, and enjoying life. Story 35. I give no thought to it. I'm 21 and I have already nearly died 3 times. After the first experience, I was in a mode where I just didn't care anymore. Story 36. I don't want to live forever. I'm living for now, traveling and enjoying myself while I am young and able. I look forward to retiring and traveling more. Story 37. Figure out what it is about death that scares you. Are you worried that dying will be painful? Are you concerned about what will happen to your dependents after you pass away? Are you afraid of what comes after death? Are you anxious about dying before you have the chance to accomplish everything you want to? These are just a few examples. Once you understand your fears, you can seek ways to overcome them. Story 38. It is usually pretty easy. Just distract yourself. If it is making you anxious, do something truly distracting. Story 39. As a cancer patient in remission, I try to live each day to the fullest. Is there a chance it can return? Yes. Can I do anything about it? No. So I cherish every day I have. If my time comes, I won't feel that I wasted it. Story 40. I wonder how many responses come from people who have had a diagnosis like, the 5-year survival rate for your disease is about 50%. I recently had a close call, meaning further tests showed I had a much less worrisome condition. It made mortality feel much more real and less theoretical. Story 41. I enjoy a book knowing I will reach the last page. I enjoy a meal knowing I will take the last bite. I enjoy a concert knowing there will be a final song. Never mind the end. Enjoy what you have while you have it. Savor every last drop. Story 42. I am old and have no responsibility to anyone else. I have a dog, but I have made arrangements for her continued care if I should die before she does. There is no use railing against the inevitable, as it makes as much sense as fearing the sun rising in the morning. When I was young and had children, I was very afraid to die as I didn't want to leave them defenseless. Now, I don't want to die, but my passing will not hurt or impact others. My incentive to keep going is now fueled by stubbornness, spite, and a lot of curiosity. Story 43. I overcame cancer a couple of years ago. When faced with uncertainty and the possibility of passing away, it became clear that what truly matters to me is the people I surround myself with, not my hobbies, achievements, or possessions. It's unusual, but I didn't mind passing for my own sake. However, realizing how much I matter to those around me filled me with gratitude for being part of their lives, as they expressed their appreciation for my contributions to theirs. Story 44. By trying to pack as much enjoyable content into my life as I can. I don't want to be on my deathbed wishing I had done different things. Also, don't dwell on it too much. You can't change the past, so you just have to play the hand you're dealt. Life doesn't come with instructions. Story 45. I just don't think about it. I concluded a long time ago that death will always be a mystery. There is nothing I can do about it. Instead of worrying about things I will never know, I focus on what I do know. I am alive right now, so I focus on that. At least that is what I tell myself. By and large, it keeps the thoughts of mortality at bay, but they still seep in every once in a while. Story 46. I don't care. The Reaper was already knocking at my door when I collapsed and stopped breathing from a heroin overdose. To be honest, I can't complain much about it. It was just over. It was like stopping a movie right in the middle of a scene and seeing a black screen. I don't fear this kind of death. I fear a slow and painful death that brings so much suffering for both me and the people around me. Death and dying are not quite the same. I don't fear the first one, but the second has to be as comfortable as possible. Story 47. You cannot choose when or how you die, unless you are really into do-it-yourself projects. But you are alive now and can choose how to live. Story 48. In this thread, atheists who refuse to believe that God is real are addressed. God is real, heaven and hell are real, and I know I will be mocked for this. However, worldly people have always mocked those who believe in God. I experienced a poltergeist at my ex-girlfriend's house and witnessed hundreds of incidents over a month-long period. I observed picture frames falling off the walls, doors opening and closing by themselves, lights turning on and off without any apparent cause, security alarms being set off, an invisible humanoid sitting on the bed, and even strange behavior from a battery-powered analog clock that sped up and slowed down right in front of me. It froze my smartwatch and would shut off electricity to power outlets. On one occasion, I felt something walk up from behind me, and I had the sensation of being watched all night. It was banging on the walls at 4 a.m. and more. I called my local Catholic church, and a priest blessed the house, causing all the activity to cease immediately. Fast forward a few years later, I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder due to the poltergeist disturbances. Every time I heard a banging sound, I would panic. I also experienced sleep paralysis, and whenever I tried to pray, blasphemous thoughts invaded my mind. Following my first confession, those issues were alleviated. Moreover, the Spirit of God dwells within you when you are free from sin, and I personally experienced this, which is supported by Scripture. Prior to this, I struggled to quit watching pornography and masturbating, feeling powerless to stop. Only after my first confession and receiving sanctifying grace was I finally able to overcome those habits. I had many demons attached to me, unknowingly, which kept me living in sin. In fact, many people have demons that influence them similarly, maintaining their sins and controlling them like a dog on a leash. These beings fuel anger, hatred, selfishness, and addictions, trapping individuals in sin. Most people are unaware of this reality, and their inability to quit pornography and masturbation proves this influence. Why was I able to quit while others cannot? When you have the Spirit of God dwelling within you, you become pure and innocent like a child once again. Sinful things become repugnant. Just as children are morally repulsed by cursing, swearing, and other vices, it is children who are pure, while adults can be deeply troubled. I know many may not believe me, but I share this in hopes that at least one person will come to the truth. Furthermore, additional evidence supporting the validity of the Catholic Church exists. Marian apparitions that accurately predict the future, Eucharistic miracles, demonic possessions and exorcisms, priestly forgiveness of sins, stigmata, and more. The evidence is present, yet many refuse to acknowledge or believe it. In sharing this, I know demons will instigate anger and hatred toward me, despite my actions being without wrongdoing. These same forces that manipulated the Jews who condemned Christ now inspire similar behavior. It indicates that humanity has not learned from the past 2,000 years. Story 49. Like some have hinted, I'm okay with mortality after going through a suicidal period in my life. Living is hard for many of us, and it is particularly challenging for me due to my mental illness. When I see questions about what I want to be reborn as, I can't help but feel frustrated. Story 50. I acknowledge that I'm here on Earth to learn and help people for a while, and that I'm just a small part of a much larger tapestry. I'm a tiny speck in a vast universe. I don't need to matter all that much, and that's okay. I enjoy being an anonymous individual, making people smile when I can. Story 51. I deal with the idea of death by zooming way out. Before we were ever here, for billions of years, the universe just was. No life, no people, no thoughts. Just rocks, gas, and chaos. One day, it'll probably go back to that, cold, dark, and empty. The fact that we're even here, alive and thinking and laughing and loving, is honestly wild. We're this unique, beautiful blip of awareness in a universe that mostly doesn't care or notice. Instead of worrying about the inevitable, I try to see it as a tiny rebellion against nothingness. A little spark that wasn't supposed to happen, but did anyway. That's truly remarkable. Why waste it stressing about the end when the middle is already such a miracle? Story 52. Honestly, it gets easier as you get older. I struggled with the idea until my 50s. Now that the kids have left home and are doing well, and after experiencing the deaths of friends and family, I'm more at peace with mortality. The key is to focus on enjoying what you have and taking the necessary steps to stay healthy so that your quality of life remains good in your later years. Story 53. 1. Live in the moment. Make the most of life. Use the awareness of mortality to gain perspective when I make a mistake or feel disappointed. Nothing lasts forever. Be grateful every morning when I wake up. Believe in reincarnation. Story 54. I was teaching my wife how to drive, and she would get nervous when oncoming traffic approached. It wasn't until I told her to think about how many cars she had passed that had not killed or even hit her that she calmed down. Yes, you will one day die, and if you're lucky, you won't feel it, but on every other day in your life, you won't die. Story 55. When confronted with a situation, there are 3 options. Accept it, change it, or resent it. If you can't change it, resenting something you can't change leads to pointless, self-inflicted suffering. Story 56. I'm procrastinating about that until I'm actually about to pass away. What's the worst that can happen? Story 57. There are places in space-time where I don't exist. I'm not in Chile on May 3, 2025, in France in 1230 CE, or probably in the United Kingdom in 2450 CE. I am in the United Kingdom on May 3, 2025, and I'm in various other places and times. I don't see why I should be concerned about not existing in some places and times. Nobody seems bothered by the fact they don't exist in 3 million BCE on a planet orbiting Alpha Centauri, so why be bothered by not existing on Earth in the 22nd century? Story 58. I bought a sport bike motorcycle and told myself, it's going to happen anyway. I might as well do something fun. I understand it may not be the best logic, but I would rather do it while I can than regret not doing it when I can't. Story 59. Denial by telling myself I have too much to do and I can't die yet. I have been dealing with health challenges, assuring myself that I am not dying until I am older. I am only 17 and have too many plans. Story 60. I live my life with happiness and experience new things. It would be sad if I were depressed, sitting at home and wasting precious time. Story 61. I saw someone say that there was a time when I didn't exist and I will just return to that. This thought has genuinely helped me a lot. Story 62. I'm almost 40 and have kids. What I've come to learn is that life is about the fingerprint you leave on this place when you're gone. Maybe you don't think you have that sort of impact, but I guarantee you do. If you believe you don't matter enough to leave an impact, then use that belief to fuel a change and strive to be the best person you can be. I think about the impact I want to leave on my kids. I am not perfect by any means, but if I leave a strong enough impact on my children and they are inspired to do the same with theirs, who knows what our lineage could bring. We might do some real good in this world. Anyway, I know I might sound a bit eccentric, but it makes me feel better about the thought of leaving everyone I love behind one day. Story 63. Death is a great mystery, and I am curious about it. Until then, I will enjoy this reality. I often think about death and dying, so I am somewhat accustomed to it now. Story 64. I believe that my death is not my concern. It becomes someone else's issue at that point. I can only focus on my own problems. Story 65. Sometimes I think that I don't really mourn the loss of time and connections that went by before I was born, so I should mourn what happens after. Story 66. By realizing that there is nothing I can do to change it, I understand that worrying about it is a waste of energy. I do my best to live a good life and enjoy everything I can while I am here. Story 67. By largely ignoring it, I know I am going to die at some point. I am more than old enough to be keenly aware of my own mortality. That really does not change anything for me, and there is no sense in dwelling on something that is simply going to happen. Story 68. Instead of waiting for an illusory salvation, I am just trying to make the most of the time I have here without hurting others. Death will come one day, but until then, let us try to find some beauty around us. Story 69. Absurdism helps me a lot. Facing it directly and realizing that I will die one day motivates me to redouble my efforts to enjoy life. Story 70. It's somewhat cynical, but it helps to remember how small I am. I want to do as much good as possible while I'm here, so that I can leave a positive impact. In the grand scheme of things, I am not that significant, and everything will continue just fine when I'm gone. The only anxiety I have is that I will likely leave projects unfinished when it happens. I have at least 4 more albums worth of music in me, and I hope to create those albums before I depart. Even if I don't manage to do so, I can still be proud of the music I created. Story 71. Start early with your midlife crisis so that death does not surprise you. I have also accepted that I may not reach the age of 80 given my declining health. I am making the most of every day so I can look back and say I did everything I wanted to do. Sometimes you stand still and realize time is moving faster than you want it to go. Before you know it, you may be old and frail, and who knows if you will feel lonely like many other older people. It is important to stay present and enjoy everything you do. Do what makes you happy and spend time with those you love. Story 72. A couple of brushes with it would do the trick. This is not a joke. I was in my country's civil war 5 years ago and had a few close calls. It has reached the point where, while I actively try to avoid death, I do not fear it in the moment, as I prefer to spend my energy trying to escape the situation. Story 73. 1. Sitman Esati. Sit with Saint Benedict. Hold death before your eyes daily. It is all about embracing the truth. Story 74. I pretend it doesn't exist, but I also use it at the same time. Yes, I'm 40, but I'm in a secure environment. My dad died at 70, and I plan to surpass that, along with the enjoyable 60 years he experienced. Medical retirement isn't fun. I will use whatever means available to ensure I enjoy my time to a large degree. Story 75. There is nothing I can do, so I may as well live while I am here. When I die and disappear, I want my last thought to be, I came, I saw, I conquered. I want to reflect on how I feel fulfilled, not dwell on what I should have done or let my fears hold me back. Story 76. It's inevitable. It's not a matter of if, but when. I'll be 58 next week. My parents are in their late 70s. Watching them deteriorate is heartbreaking, but it also reaffirms that no matter what I do, soon they'll be gone. And in 20 years, if I am lucky, I will be in their position. Having grandchildren now makes me want to stay on this earth as long as I can. But as I toddle off into antiquity, I realize that life is like a roll of toilet paper. The further you go in, the faster it runs out. Just do what you can to make the rest of your time the best you can. It's not what you have, it's what you give. Story 77. Realizing that I am only here temporarily, I try to do good, treat people with respect, help as many individuals as possible, and leave a legacy that others will admire. Story 78. I have faith and accept that we are here for an experience. Everyone's journey is unique, which is part of what makes life interesting. When it's all said and done, you have one life. Enjoy it as best as you can and don't worry about what you can't control. The end comes for all of us in our own time. Enjoy your experience. I wish you well and will pray for you. Story 79. The thought of dying does not faze me. It is going to happen, and when it does, I will go back to what it was like before birth. Nothingness. I just hope it is not a painful death. Story 80. Ignoring that it will happen, if I focus on it, it is super humbling too. Maybe even a relief. I feel slightly more relaxed knowing I don't have to work so hard. Death will happen anyway, and how I die is likely very much out of my control. Story 81. I don't think we do, honestly. I feel like we all get scared of it in the end, and it is something we all have to go through at some point. Story 82. Why should I fear death? If I exist, then death does not. If death exists, then I do not. Why should I fear that which can only exist when I do not? This quote has truly helped me throughout my life. Story 83. Accept it, don't think about it. Live every moment like it is your last. What is the worst that can happen? They take your birthday away? Story 84. By giving absolutely no concern. I am unjustifiably healthy for my age and have none of the usual physical complaints. I think I am destined for a long life and will inevitably see everyone I care about die before me. If I am wrong, it will be a pleasant surprise. Story 85. Psychedelics helped me accept my eventual death and pursue the things and people I desire in life while I am here. The chance of existing and reaching a point of appreciation for that is quite astonishing. Story 86. The same way I cope with the fact that I have to use the restroom. Stop worrying about things beyond your control and live your life. How unfortunate would it sound to lament that you had a difficult life because you spent every moment stressing about your mortality. Story 87. Funny you should ask. I have been thinking about this a lot since my wife of 29 years passed away just over a year ago and my father died last month. I have had a good life and I am okay with dying. It is part of life and it is natural. I am not in a hurry to die, and I do not want to suffer or linger, which I honestly think is worse for everyone. I do not have any children, so at this point I just have to outlive the dog. I am working on going through my belongings and getting rid of things I do not need so that when I do die, someone else does not have to do it. I can retire in less than a year, although I do not know if I will yet. If I keep working, I will not work that long. My wife and I were looking forward to retirement, and she did not get that, so I am kind of going to do that for her. Story 88. What does it mean to not cope with it? To cry about it every day. I had aggressive cancer and 50-50 odds, so I'm just very happy to still be here. Story 89. 5 years ago, in my early 50s, a congenital heart defect became apparent. Within a couple of hours, I learned that I had 10 days to live without surgery, and even with surgery, there was only a 20% chance of waking up. The following days were filled with deep thoughts, to say the least. Fortunately, I am now fully recovered with a predicted normal lifespan. I consider this extra time as a bonus, like credit for time served. Before the surgery, I found myself reflecting on whether I had made a difference, if I mattered, and if anyone would remember me in 10 years. Given how I spent my first half-century, I feel that the answer is yes. Now, my bonus time feels even more valuable. Story 90. Were you panicked that you weren't born before being born? No, you simply didn't exist. Yet, what comprises you, namely the atoms, existed in the universe long before you were born. The interesting part is that they will continue to exist long after your body's demise. So, in a sense, you were never born and you will never die. You only changed shape. Story 91. I am 74 years old. I have witnessed my share of death. I know it is inevitable and happens to everyone. Therefore, there is no point in being afraid of it. Story 92. The older I get, the more I welcome it. If I had to endure the situation forever, I would go insane. Story 93. Acceptance. I spent years agonizing over the possibility of death and the endings of relationships. Then I started focusing on the cycle of life. As seasons change, I watch plants grow and become beautiful, and then wither and die. In the spring, there is new growth and beauty. I appreciate the beauty in the summer, and then I watch them wither and die in the fall and winter. There is beauty in withering and death. Sadness is part of the balance of life. Allow yourself to feel the emotion and accept the cycle of it all. Takes time, but it gets easier. Story 94. I look forward to my death, but life is exciting. There is always something happening that I do not want to miss. I mostly do not worry about my death. If I die, I die, and I will have no more problems. My only concern is how I die. Story 95. My faith helps. 2 days ago, I felt unafraid of death for the first time. The more I think about heaven, the less I worry about suffering, life's inevitable problems, death, or the afterlife. Story 96. You can either cope and live a normal life or worry about it and suffer from stress-related issues. Story 97. Death is the inevitable conclusion of your time in this world. There is no fear to be had. If you fear death because there are things you would like to see or do, or people you want to spend more time with, that is a sign to pursue them. While chances are you may never achieve everything this planet has to offer, time is not an entitlement. If you fear death because of what might come after, there are numerous belief systems that typically encompass some notion of an afterlife. Find one that resonates with you and embrace it. When you analyze most religions, they tend to converge on the idea of facilitating prosocial behavior. Concepts like heaven, hell, Valhalla, the underworld, reincarnation, and nirvana all lead to realms that are beyond our comprehension. Whatever lies beyond this world is far beyond our control. Personally, I am leaving things to chance. Either death will result in an absence of consciousness or feeling, similar to the state before birth, or it will be an entirely new experience with its own sensations and a different understanding of what life may be. Regardless of what lies ahead, neither of these outcomes will change the fact that you, I, or anyone else have no control over it. Story 98. I take Zoloft. Without the medication, I spent almost every waking second worrying about death and dying. Apparently, it is a form of obsessive-compulsive disorder, according to my doctor. The medication helps a lot. Story 99. Humor mostly, but there is a great deal of uncertain acceptance as well. I don't want to die, but what I want is irrelevant. If I am lucky, I will have spent my time making this world a better place. Circle of life, indeed. Story 100. Live your best life. You never know how long you have. I have a 94-year-old mother and a 33-year-old daughter-in-law who has brain cancer. Also, be a good person. Enjoy what you have and make the most of it. Story 101. In my teenage years and 20s, I was terrified of death. Now, in my late 30s, I have come to peace with the fact that death is inevitable. I'm not afraid at all. Story 102. I had a huge fear of death when I was younger. It terrified me to the point that I would wake up in the middle of the night and have panic attacks about it. Then I had my 2 daughters, and the fear somewhat dissipated when I realized I would die in an instant if it gave them even a 1% chance of living on. My priorities shifted. Story 103. I plan on living forever, and so far so good. Seriously, I am well aware of the circle of life, and I am riding that merry-go-round one day at a time, making the most of it. I've done my duty by sending my DNA into the future. 5 kids, 10 grandkids, and 6 great-grandkids at last count. I expect there will be several more. Story 104. It's not my own mortality that concerns me. It's the mortality of those I love, especially my mother, who will likely go before me. I struggle to imagine how my life will continue without her guidance and friendship. Now that I am a mother, I dread the thought of a day when my daughter may not have me to turn to. It's not death itself that frightens me. Story 105. I cannot describe how little I care. As long as I live long enough to help my mother through the rest of her life and have time to settle her affairs, I do not care if I am struck by lightning the next day. I have never cared. I suppose it's just how I am wired. Story 106. Honestly, my own mortality doesn't bother me much anymore, to the point that I rarely even think about it. It's inevitable, so I just hope that it is relatively quick and painless, not some long, drawn-out decline to the end. Alzheimer's and dementia scare me more than anything. Every now and then, I do lose someone close, and it reminds me that I have limited time left, hopefully around 30 to 40 years, but you never know. That generally gives me a push to either remove stressful elements from my life or waste less time on pointless activities and concentrate on my goals. My hope is that my life will be judged by the work I leave behind, the contributions I make to the fields I love and care about, as well as my actions, however small, toward bettering humanity and the world in general. If on my deathbed I can look back and see that I've made the world a little better and advanced the fields of study I devoted my life to, I'll close my eyes happily. For me, that includes the preservation and study of industrial history, my design work as an engineer, and general charity toward my fellow humans. Plus, of course, my cats. Knowing the dozen or so stray cats I cared for over my life may not be remembered by anybody else, but I consider it time well spent. Story 107. Honestly, if you think about it too long, it can feel really uncomfortable. But ultimately, we have no control over how and when we die. We can control how we live. So I focus on that. Story 108. Live every day to the fullest. Embrace kindness and empathy towards people and fellow living beings. Story 109. Everyone has an immortal spirit. It is a simple matter of whether you will spend eternity with God or alone. Choose wisely, and you cannot create your own version of God to resolve your feelings about the true God. I have experienced clinical death 3 times, so I understand the acceptance of death. Story 110. All the men in my family since the beginning of recorded history have died of heart attacks before they turned 56. I am going to die in my early 50s, and I know how. I have found that quite comforting as I get older. This situation isn't going to be my problem forever. Story 111. I remind myself that I never asked to be born, but my parents made choices, and now I have to work to afford to live. I never wanted any of this, but ending my life would hurt the people I care about, so I will keep going. Maybe I will be fortunate and not wake up tomorrow. Story 112. I learned to pursue what makes me happy while visiting and experiencing new places and activities. Keeps me busy, and I feel rewarded and fulfilled, which helps alleviate existential thoughts about my mortality. Story 113. I am so consumed by my daily struggles that I haven't had a chance to contemplate my mortality. Story 114. Either there is something or nothing. Nothing means no thing at all. No you, no pain, no worry, nothing. So the worry is the something nice? I think there is something. This life is to learn. I saw a video of 2 fetuses talking in the womb about life after birth. One baby mused on the new things we might learn and the nature of a higher power, which the other fetus thought were all around them. I think I'll call her mother, one said, while the other scoffed and replied that there is nothing after birth. I don't have a link to the video mentioned, but a talk I saw years ago stuck with me. It illustrated how we are already a part of the whole. I haven't watched it in a while, but I remember it touched on topics that made reference to life after death. Story 115. I think I am feeling suicidal now, but once I was a kid who would cry myself to sleep when 2012 was approaching, fearing I would die at the end of the world. What helps is behavioral conditioning. Emotionally, I believe accepting that one day we will all die, whether young or old, and that the life we have lived so far has had its good parts and takeaways is important. It is enough, even if it feels incomplete or unrealized from one perspective. Story 116. I don't view death as the end, but rather as a doorway to something else. Perhaps it's nothingness, or perhaps it's not. I just hope it is better than life here. If it is nothing, I won't have the ability to be disappointed. Contemplating that transition fills me with curiosity and excitement instead of dread. As someone else has said, it is inevitable, so I won't waste my energy worrying about what lies on the other side until my final breath. Story 117. Living forever without the ability to die would, to me, be a true curse. At some point, I would want to end my existence and find rest. The end coming sooner than I might choose is unfortunate, but around 80 years seems like a decent span if I achieve it. Not many creatures live that long. I have to admit that aging is harder to cope with. I don't mind it yet, but the thought that someday my body might fail in a way that prevents me from doing something I love is challenging to accept. My hope is that maintaining a healthy lifestyle will allow me to continue skiing and biking well into my 70s. If not, I must find other pursuits to fill my heart. Story 118, because it doesn't really matter. Sure, it matters to me now, but it's self-referential. When I'm gone, I won't be around to be bothered by it. Someday the sun will swallow the earth, and eventually the entire universe will be reduced to a uniform state where it will be impossible for anything to happen, and there will be no way to know that anything ever happened at all. That wouldn't even matter, as the concepts of past, present, and future would be meaningless, since time itself will have no functional bearing on anything. I'm fun at parties. Story 119. I don't. Truthfully, it's been a few years since I last remember caring about my own life. Everything has been so difficult for me. Not trauma dumping, as the kids would say, just answering the question. Story 120. Turning 30 this year, I've had a good run of it. I am satisfied with what I have accomplished, and time is undefeated, so I would rather focus on other things. I also don't think being here for the water wars will be enjoyable, so I am all right with leaving before then. Story 121. It has been tough. At some point, possibly in my 40s, doctors changed their approach to my treatment. They focused less on solving any medical issues I had and more on managing the symptoms. Story 122. I genuinely believe in an afterlife, though not in a particularly religious way. I have experienced the death of many close family members and friends, more than 15 people, and these experiences have convinced me that there is something more to our existence than just the bodies we inhabit. I have my own ideas about what happens after we die, but I am open to being wrong about the details. Still, I'm convinced there is something, and that's enough for me. Story 123. My fate is ultimately the same as the stars, the moon, and the planets. The greatest and the worst will both die eventually. Death is simply a journey to an unknown destination. Story 124. I want to live my life doing what I love, and I want the people who care about me to remember me fondly. Everyone on this planet will eventually pass away, whether we like it or not. I believe we should strive to make our lives extraordinary and memorable for ourselves and those around us. Story 125. Remind yourself that you are no different from anyone else. No one gets to do everything they want. Pursue your goals now and try to have fewer regrets. Story 126. It reassures me to think that everyone is one day closer to their own end, and that it is not just my time running out. Everyone, and eventually everything, will come to an end. Story 127. It usually doesn't bother me because I won't have to do any of the things I dislike anymore. Story 128. Hey, self, how do you cope with your own mortality? Well, self, I will one day die and I won't be around to see what happens. Basically, I just try to do things nicely and help people where I can. But there's currently only one way to stop the aging clock from ticking, and that's by running out of time. I don't believe there's anything afterwards. It's just oblivion, and I don't worry about that. Story 129. I experienced a similar existential crisis when I was about 17, losing sleep over it. Ultimately, I came to the conclusion that one of two things is true. 1. There is something more after we die, but nobody knows what that is. There is nothing after we die. So, I look forward to the next adventure while appreciating the current one, secure in the knowledge that if there is no next adventure, I will never know it. This understanding allows me to sleep. Story 130. Oh, it's a very relaxing thought sometimes. Just think about wars, foolish governments, and people littering on the streets. But in about 30 to 40 years, it won't be my problem anymore. I mean, I'm definitely not going to speed it up. There are still many things to do. Story 131. I choose to find it freeing. There are times when I'm exhausted, frustrated, and upset, but I know it's only temporary. There will be no more pain or suffering. We finally get to rest. Story 132. I think about it often. It feels heavy to get older, with my body weakening and my children growing up. I am aware of things I could have done in the past but still have not done now. Story 133. I had an unhealthy childhood that led me to make peace with the idea of death. I believed I would die by 18 after hearing many people comment about my weight and eating habits, and I spent a lot of time thinking about how the religious teachings my family preached did not make sense to me. So I figured I would find my answers soon. Now I'm in my 30s and still content with the knowledge that I will die someday. It is the one thing that cannot be escaped in life. But I don't worry about that. I focus on trying to live a good life and leave things a little better than I found them. No matter what awaits when I die, the peace of having done my best is enough for me. Story 134. As someone with chronic kidney disease, I think about it more than most. It usually comes down to feeling like there is nothing I can do about it. Story 135. I was born into a highly demanding religion or cult, depending on your preference. I was taught to believe that this life was a drop of water in eternity. The idea of living forever honestly scared me. Would I get bored? What would I do? Worship all day? Become a god? It didn't make sense. Knowing that this is my only life helps me live in the moment more and focus on what is important now, not what could be important later on. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.